Good afternoon, Scott Baker.
Mikey, good afternoon to you. Welcome everybody to another edition of Lead Better, and we're going to be talking about identity. And I guess the question here is, if I asked you, Mikey, give me three words to describe you, like that would kind of get to the essence of you. If I asked your kids, if I asked your coworkers, give me three words to identify Mikey, and everybody else, you can do this in your head at home. How close would those words be?
Yeah, I'd like to think that the three words that I'm going for are the three words that come up, but there might be a bit of a gap. This conversation, by the way, is one that is long overdue for me. Like I should have had this in junior high, because I was the kind of kid in junior high who would try on different identities for a week at a time, like trying to figure out who I was going to be, right?
You're like, are you the nerd? Are you the jock? Are you the science kid?
And everybody does that, but
right.
what we don't do is like, how do you actually project the identity? Like we can all decide on different identities, but most of that work is usually done inside the head of the junior hire. No one talks to them about the behaviors and the actions that actually make sure that the identity that you want to project is actually being projected. Like, what a great conversation.
Yes. And project is the word in the title. So the headline for the title of today's field note is, do you project the identity you want to?
Right.
And we all have an idea that, oh, this is who I am. This is how I walk around in the world. And a lot of other people are kind of like, well, first of all, they're not paying attention to you that much.
Right.
Right? They're not quite as focused on you as you might think or hope that they would be. But in a team, you do have some sense of that. And there's a tremendously important thing here, because this does get to the heart of who we are, right? Because we might even say, here's how I see myself. But if I'm hearing that other people don't describe me that way, or as a self-test, when I'm really under pressure, when you're facing sort of a moment of intense, challenge, what comes out, right? What expression of you is there? Is that closer to the real you? And then you look and you go like, gosh, I hope not.
Yeah.
Like that was my worst moment, not my best moment.
When you get leaders actually talking about that gap, when they're if you can get them to identify how is the difference between how you think that you are and how you're actually perceived, they usually end up talking about, and we've heard this from leaders through coaches in our firm who say, man, if my team just knew how much I cared, if only they knew how much I cared. And I think our best coaches in our firm are able to call hogwash on that right away, because it's not just about the projection. It really is like, it becomes an excuse almost to be like, my level of authenticity is in my head, not in my actions. And oftentimes leaders just rest on that, right? Where I am is not my most authentic, is the way I think about myself. And I only wish my team knew how much I cared, how much I think about them, how much I consider, how much I strain and stress over things, right?
Yeah. Right.
So
actually, what I would say to a leader who was having that mental conversation was like, I don't want you to care about me that much. Just go focus on getting better strategy, figuring out what our next marketing campaign is going to look like, or whatever that is. I do want you to care, and I care about you, but let's not go over in. I don't want you spending 90% of your time worried about this, but that maybe is me just being, inconsiderate of people's feelings. But look, here at the heart of this field note, because I think there's way more in this than we could possibly cover in the next, 11 minutes. So you have this issue of saying we have an internal sense of ourself. We have a way that we externally represent ourselves. Now, some of these things that are listed in the field note, and we'll get to some of the things, just they kind of sound like values, like, am I creative? Am I analytical? They're descriptive. Now, do you think of analytical as kind of a core way that you really think about yourself? Some people probably do. Now, we understand, the different personality tests out there, or the big 5 aspect scale. What's your level of extroversion? What's your level of agreeableness? These kinds of things. And they all do say a lot about you. But when you walk around in the world, do you want to just be seen as bumper stickers of 3 different sort of labels like this? So the question in this field note, because what it's saying is, you might have a list of 20 things and you say, I'm all of these things. And people are like, Yeah, that's why you're a crazy person, because you're just all over the map. And the field note is saying, let's narrow this down to a set of things that really do represent you. And within that limit, there is a power. So I think the question that I have for you, Mikey, is that an authentic challenge, or is it too artificial when we're talking about the complexity of human beings?
I don't think it's too artificial.
Okay. Defend your position.
I think that if you're asking, like, because it struck me when you were asking your initial question about, are the three things that your family are going to use as descriptors of you going to be anywhere close to the three things that I might decide, or I might hope that they would say about me? And so once you start thinking about what those things are, it's not too overwhelming to say that if I was going to be writing an obituary about a friend of mine or about a family member or something like that, I'd want to come up with that list of three, right? There would be probably three things that really stand out in that person's life that would everyone who's come to the funeral would agree in the way that I memorialize them. And so that notion of like who they are as a human being, sure, it's complex, and sure, but this idea of like, where do their behaviors actually show up? I think three is probably a pretty good number there, right? In most personality assessments, you've got this range of things on 5 different scales and 7 different scales and 13 different scales.
Yeah.
So if I feel the need to choose 13, that's where I'm going to get lost. Choosing 1, 2, or 3 is great.
Well, here's what's great about what you just said, because I hadn't been thinking of this connection. But you just pointed to what sometimes is defined as the difference between resume virtues and eulogy virtues, right? Here, let me tell you about myself. Hire me, right?
Yeah.
Or what are people going to say about me at my funeral? Which actually goes back to, we talk about Covey fairly often, but that goes back to the original Covey book about 7 Habits, where he actually puts that out as a way of organizing what truly is important. How do you want people to talk about you at your funeral, right? That's a well-known exercise now over the last 50 years. And so if you started to do it that way, it might be a clarifying result there. And the interesting thing is that, I had read an op-ed in the New York Times just the other day by David Brooks, who wrote a book about the resume and eulogy values. And he was saying, what are the things that we love? And he listed like 18 things that he loved. And he goes, what are the things that you love? And what you love and are passionate about is a clue. So the question is, and I think that the funeral image is a way that does help you sort through this. I think it can get you down to the 3 or 4 things that you would say, that's how I want to be remembered, right, and therefore that's how I want to be identified. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Okay, so once we get to these 2 or 3 items where we've landed on our identities of these descriptors, how does the real work begin? What's next?
Well, I think that's where you kind of pointed to the issue of what's inside my head versus what do people actually see. Because you can have a framework inside your head, but we can only hear the words that you speak or write and the actions that you take, right? The impact that you have in conversation with other people. And do they see you as that person? Are you working from a noble heart that you're going to really try to make the lives of those around you in those situations better? And what does that look like? Because that's where the consistency becomes an identity. You're just trying on a hat like Mikey in 7th grade. That's not going to work for very long.
No, and eventually it'll destroy my credibility because people will know I'm constantly trying on different hats.
Yeah. All right. So what does it look like when we say at Admired Leadership that leadership is about what you do, when all the rest of the leadership world seems to be around, let's really understand ourselves and let's get into our deepest values. And
well,
let's
more dangerous than that is this focus that as long as you have the right mindset, the behaviors will naturally flow out of that, right?
Yes, right. And that would just be me saying, you know, if I just really believe and really see myself as a great tennis player,
yes,
and then I'm ready. It's kind of like we talked about the other day when I was like, I used to, as a 7 or 8-year-old, loved surfing, and I read surfing magazines and I watched surfing movies, and except I'd never surfed.
Yeah, right.
So I didn't know how to actually serve,
Right.
right? So there was just a small little, wrinkle in the problem there. But yeah, you actually say, well, let's go the other way around. Let's get busy about doing the things that leaders do. If you want to be seen as a compassionate leader, what does that look like? Start doing those things, and then it matters. If you want to be seen as a great decision maker, if you want to be seen as very strategic, if you want to be seen as very analytical or creative, there are ways that you actually demonstrate that. And probably the more that you do it and do it and do it, and pretty soon, you become that.
Right. So if you're a leader who wants to give great feedback, right? We've got a dozen great feedback behaviors that are in our platform. And so when you first read those behaviors, you're like, oh, those are simple. I do those. Well, you're probably saying you've done it twice. That's probably
Right, exactly.
But actually making that a part of your daily routine where you're thinking to act that way every single time it comes up and being proactive on it, that's creating leadership on a skill level that a lot of people don't like. It's difficult to pick up a book. A lot of people pick it up with the idea of a technique as well. It's like, I'm going to add these 6 feedback behaviors into my life and I'm going to do them regularly. And you think to yourself, well, why am I doing that? Well, because I want to be an effective leader. At the end of the day, right? It's like, I just want to be the kind of leader who these admired leaders are. So there is an identity in there, but the identity is an admired leader. So why isn't the identity admired leader? Why are we like getting down to, I want to be known as someone who gives great feedback, right? Who really helps and encourages and provides an opportunity for their team members to grow. So so I could see that as being like one focus thing. So, but why not admired? Why is the admired thing like not in the list according to the field note today?
Well, I actually think the word admired is not only just in the name of our organization. If you go into like the philosophical literature, I mean, there's a lot in there about what is it about the people we admire, those values we admire. And I actually do think it's one of the most important things you can do is to think in a sophisticated way about that question. And when you think about who you admire and leaders you admire, and you say, could I be a little bit more like that? You're headed in the right direction. And I do think that this idea of what is revealed not only in how people would describe you, what is revealed when you're under moments of pressure, and whether it's a business performance moment, a sports performance moment, a crisis in the home, the death of a loved one, and how you respond and step up and how you comfort others. Those are moments of revelation. And then one of the other ones that's perhaps also revealing is this: what do people turn to you for? Who's when you pick up the phone and people say, "Can you help me with this?" What are they asking you for?
Yeah.
Right? You go like, "Oh, I keep getting calls like this. Maybe I'm kind of good at that.
Right.
Maybe this is something that I need to see as part of my own self-identification."
You don't have to trivialize it, because yesterday I received a phone call to help me move furniture, right? What does that mean about me, right?
It would mean that you're fit, but I don't think that's it. It means
right.
that people see you as someone who is reliable and giving and will do it. And not complain about it. Yeah. And not just do it because they expect, that you expect them to buy you a drink at the end of the day.
Right. So once you start getting requests and compliments that way, you do have the tendency to want to lean into it, because that's where the feedback is coming from.
Right. Yeah.
But if all it's related to is like, people call on me to do volunteer kind of work all the time because of how I'll show up, then it becomes like, oh, should that make it to my list of 3? Because that means it'll be a lot of time commitment on a lot of things where I'm not actually setting the agenda on it, right? And that's where the rub is. Like, because I don't want to be known as someone who's unavailable or who won't help out, right?
Right.
But so for someone who's a people pleaser, when it comes down to choosing those 3 that we're actually going to put behaviors behind, it becomes a difficult question.
Yes, it does. Now, let me say this here at the end. There's one reason that sticks out in my mind about why I kind of like the funeral exercise or the eulogy virtues. back to the Covey time. If you're going to bring that idea up with other people, just be careful how you do it. I do remember at one point, decades ago, that I was in a conversation with somebody, and it was a little bit intense, but there was a benefit to the conversation. It wasn't an argument, right? And I kind of said, well, how do you want people to describe your funeral? And I thought I'm asking like a really helpful, profound question to make this person go, oh, you're right. Gosh, I got to really think about that. And they thought I was threatening them. They're like, what are you saying? I was like, no, I'm not going to kill you. Right? It's like, this is not we're not we're in a totally different conversation. So I'm just saying, if you don't want to be seen as threatening, be careful how you bring up saying to somebody, how do you want to be seen at your funeral?
It's really funny to me that someone misinterpreted you that much, but I suppose it could happen.
It did, yeah. And I was like, no. They were like, oh, okay. Maybe this had never been brought up to them in that way before. So, anyway, I love this topic. I'm so glad it was a field note, and I hope we all reflect a little bit on this, because I think there's probably nothing more important that we could do as leaders is to become more clear about how we see ourselves, how we want others to see us, and how that makes them better. And if we do that right now, the year might be better.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks very much. We'll do this tomorrow. Bye now.